Hi, this is Dorothy with Dot Scrapbooking, and I am going to do a floating frame. I'm going to try to do a floating frame. And the first flowers that I used were all individual leaves and stuff, and so I found this stamp set sitting on my desk under a bunch of other things, and it's got the cluster of flower plus leaves all as one. And so I stamped up a bunch of them and colored them with my tri-blend markers. And they're pretty little clusters. And there's, some really nice sayings on this. We rise by lifting others and love these people and together. And that little wreath down there is adorable. And it's got, says better together on the inside. So it's a really nice stamp set. And I've clearly used it before, but it kind of got hidden. So I went on a search after trying my first attempt at a floating frame with the individual flowers and leaves, and just decided that this is much better to have a cluster. So they're nice little clusters, and it was fun coloring them with the tri-blends. So I'm going to continue to use the press and seal, but this time I'm going to make a smaller piece, cut a smaller piece from it so it's more controllable, and just kind of help it to adhere to the piece of cardstock first before I cut it down. So there we go, and nothing shifted, so that was a good thing. I think it helps to have a smaller piece of the press and seal. So I'm going to trim all the excess from around the card, including of course, the press and seal plus any of the extra. There we go. That's easier to handle. So I just have, I cut a piece of cardstock. So this is not the card, it's just a piece of cardstock to give me kind of a go-by of trimming. So you want to press the press and seal down, and then you want to trim away the excess. So you're kind of having the flowers and leaves bleed over the edge. And then by trimming away the excess, then you have a go-by to where to lay the flowers down after you're finished. Now you can hold on to those pieces if you want to use on another card. So there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I've got a round, I found a just plain round, not a stitched one, and I was hoping for a bigger one and rectangle, but this is what I had. All of my other thin cuts are all the stitched, and this really needs just the plain. I think it works much better. So I'm going to go ahead and place my thin cut where I want it, and then I'm going to just kind of tack it in place with some washi tape so it doesn't slip and slide around. So my flowers came out looking very colorful. So I run it through, and I purposely left it on the cardstock because the die cutter here actually does a better job of cutting through the cardstock than just the plain press and seal. So I got a nice crisp cut from it. So I'm just taking off the washi. And removing the thin cut and the inside piece. Now the nice thing about that inside piece, and look, that just came out beautifully. So that can be used for another card. So I'll make this card, and then I'll use the round piece that's left and make another card. So this little wreath actually fits perfectly in this die cut. It's like it was made for it. So lucky me for finding this stamp set. And this round, I think this round thin cut was in another thin cut bundle that I came across. So I'm happy for that because it's perfect. It's just absolutely perfect. So that is going to be peeking through the opening on the, that's going to be my sentiment showing on the opening of the floating frame. So I really like the little flowered wreath, and it was really fun to color those itty-bitty flowers and leaves, and it went real fast, and you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, they're too small for me to color. You don't worry about coloring a little outside the lines if need be. So I'm just taking this off, and I'll, here we go. And it actually worked. Normally I cut my thin cut piece and then I stamp it. But I think that I'm going over to the other side of first stamping and then using the thin cut. I think when I first started this, we didn't really have washi tape that we were actively using. It's been quite a few years ago. And the washi tape has made all the difference. So I think you have a better chance of getting it perfectly centered by stamping first and then using your thin cut. So now actually what I could have done, I'm trying to figure out where to put the center here. I think what I could have done was to put it right into the center. No, I couldn't have done that because then it would be sitting at the same level. No, I think I could have done that. But anyway, that's okay. So now I'm going to, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Now I'm going to put the double stick foam on the backs of the flowers and leaves. Ran out, I'm going to go through another roll here. It gets kind of tedious using all the spots, the dots of foam, so it's easier to use the foam tape. It's easier to take it off in large pieces and just use the smaller piece, the smaller dots when you have a tiny little piece. So you could use a really nice thick, this isn't a particularly thick foam tape, but you could use a thick foam tape, and I think that would make the frame stand up more and be more obvious that it's floating. This isn't that thick. And so see, I'm using the spots and dots just on the small pieces going up to the edge to keep it from folding over. This is so much easier this time. I think it just made all the difference, number one, to not use the really big piece of press and seal, which is totally unnecessary, and to cut off the edges to the edge of the cardstock or the card. That helped tremendously. And you know, sometimes you just have to play with something and do it a couple of times before you kind of get it. You know, that you don't quite, you can watch it and it looks very easy when you watch somebody else do it, but you don't really understand why they're doing it the way they're doing it. Well, I think I finally got it with this. So, and it made all the difference. You have to be careful with what stamp you're using. So you want to use a stamp that is a cluster rather than a whole bunch of small pieces. That is just going to, you know, do nothing but drive you crazy. So I have one itty-bitty piece there that's hanging, a little piece of leaf. And, you know, frankly, it probably wouldn't have made any difference if I took that off. But, you know, sometimes you get a thing going and you just have to get it. So I think that this is coming out so much better already. And then the little wreath will go right on the inside. And you can tell I'm not using water cardstock that's made for watercolors, because it leaks, it bleeds through, but not a big deal. So there we go. So now the hard part is to, why can't I leave anything alone? I always have to take it off and do it over again. What is that with me? So this is, you know, one of the harder parts, removing all the little backings on the foam. But then what I do have is a sharp edge to go lay this out on top of the card. And that makes all the difference in the world. So you have, if you cut it blunt to the edge of the card, then it's no problem matching up where you want to lay it down. Now I have to tell you, I haven't seen this. I think the floating frame has been around for a very long time, and I think I've not seen it, haven't paid attention to it, haven't been doing tons of cards. I do mostly scrapbook pages. But the card thing is, I've really learned to enjoy it more and more. And you can do, you know, all sorts of techniques on a card that, you know, for you know, a scrapbook page or layout, it might be too much. So this way you're dealing with small, and that just sometimes helps with a more complicated technique. So I'm just lining up the edges. So apparently I cut the cardstock 1/4 of an inch smaller all the way around from the card. So it's 4 by 5 1/4. And I just kind of wanted a little bit of a white frame around the edge of the card. So I wasn't lining it up blunt, but I could line it up just a tad in from the edge. So apparently I pressed it down real good, because it got pretty darn sticky for a not very sticky press and seal. I pulled up a little bit of color, but not anything real bad. And you can always go back and put the marker on it if you pull something off. Oh, and I think, let's see. So you just want to be careful with pulling it off. I think I really did too good of a job of burnishing it down. But I had such a problem the first time I did a card that I think I was trying to make sure. So the only thing I pulled off was a little bit of color here and there. So there's my card. And I do like these flowers. I think they're very pretty. And so it's standing up. Now it could stand up a little bit more with some thicker foam, and I think that would be cool, but it is sticking up some. So I'm going to put a little flower from the other card stamp I was using, the Floral Celebration. So we rise by lifting others. So it kind of looks like a little flower pot with a flower coming out of it, because I put the two stamps together to look like that. So the other thing I'm going to do is put a stamp on my envelope, because I always do that. And so I'm going to take one of the flower elements, one of the flower clusters, and I'm using, I think it's wisteria. And it's not a very dark stamp, but it kind of goes with the flowers, and so I thought I would do that. Now I'm trying to think of what I want to do for the inside. So they have a swoosh in there, and I don't know what else to call it. I used to call them blobs, but it's just kind of a swoosh for a background of a whatever, whether it's a image or words, and they're just kind of cool looking. And so I'm going to do a second generation. Just a little hint of color. And then I'll put some words on top of it. I do like these blobs, I have to tell you. And they're kind of a thing. I mean, they've been a thing for a while, but boy, you see it a lot. I'm just testing, I'm seasoning the stamp and putting best friends on the inside, better together. So I'm pretty happy with that card. And I'll come back later. I'm going to do 2 more cards and show you what I've done with the center of this card, and then I'll add some little glitter gems to the front of that card. But I'm just happy that I got through that without creating a blooper video. So, really nice little cluster of flowers. I do like those. That'll be a fun one to send to somebody. So, here's the next card that I'm going to do. And that in itself is just, with that purple flower on the inside, it's just, I love the way it's my dog making noises. I think she's telling me it's time to eat. So I'm going to put that on the front and remove it from its cardstock and add a bunch of dots and tape. These are even better. Now the fun thing about these is that they're cut on the round, of course, for the shaker window. And so there's a kind of a radius to some of the pieces of foam, which absolutely worked out perfectly. See, you match the radius to the radius of the cut there, and it works perfectly. So that was just fortunate that I noticed that. And so the little bitty pieces can go like in the, see, that's like that piece was made for that. Funny, isn't it, how things work out sometimes? So this, and this is a little bit thicker foam than the other foam that I was using. So this will stand up a little bit more. So I'm just pressing it down to make sure it's in place. And then I just kind of have to, see, you can already tell that it's standing up a little bit higher. And I cut a bunch of, now that die cut, so that's the stitch die cut. And that is used for making the outside rim of the shaker card. And so I cut a bunch of colors. And I'm just trying them all out. And I kind of decide that I really like the white. And I just kind of wanted to outline the edge there. Probably didn't need to do that, but I like the white on white. And so that's gonna, and I didn't know whether I should raise it up, and then I thought, no, I want that to be flat, and I want the flowers to be raised. So I'm just trying to figure out the orientation that I want, and I'm most comfortable with the little leaves pointing towards about 1 or 2 o'clock there. So I'm adding Tombow to my stitch circle frame. eyeballing the placement. And then I'm going to remove the back. Sometimes it's easier to do it with a tweezer rather than your fingers until the pieces stick to the tweezer. So this other card stamp has got some really nice phrases and quotes in it. And I'll be putting a quote from Henri Matisse on the front of the card. Of course, he's a French impressionist painter, I think. So it's a nice phrase or quote, I should say, not a phrase, but a quote. And I've got almost all of them done here. There we go. And that foam tape is just super, super sticky. Missed one. Really strong tape, geesh. Okay, so there's my centerpiece. And since it went through the die cut machine, it got pressed down really, really good. So I'm being really careful with it. I sure don't want to rip up all the, whoop, that took a little bit of color off there. You don't want to rip up all the stuff that you just colored and put in place. So there we go. And it's kind of nice to have the stark colors on the white base. So, I used A Million Little Things. That's the other stamp set I was using. So this is a beautiful stamp set that I've used on other cards. And they have beautiful floral clusters, but they were too big to use for to have more than one on the front of the card, I thought. So that's why I didn't use that one. Always flowers for those who want to see them. And I'm just going to put it down in the corner there. And once again, I'm using the wisteria. So boy, I'm really enjoying making these cards, just because it's something different to do, and it kind of challenges the brain a little bit to you know, do something that's a little bit different and a little initially challenging. Not terrifically challenging, but you know, awkward. And so friendship isn't one thing, but a million little things. And of course, I'll put a little signature or something on the back. I do like that little daisy flower, so that's going to go on the back. I'm in close-up mode here, so I'm missing some stuff off camera. Sorry about that. And I'll add something to my envelope that... Don't know what I'll add to my envelope. What am I going to add to my envelope? A different phrase. with some little flowers, teensy little flowers. So cute, so tiny. And I think it says it's the little things that count. Got to put it on right side up. It's the little things that mean so much. So there we go. That's card number 2. So I'm just going to put all my little pieces away so they don't get lost. And it's one thing, if you're making a floating frame and you cut out a center of the frame, then you're actually making 2 cards at one time. And see, I liked my ring so much, I thought I'm in Olympic mode here. I still like my white one. So I'm just going to put those aside and put my other card out. So I like the way that came out. So you can tell that I didn't give you much of a view there, but it's more raised. And I have some bitty, they're called bitty sparkles. They're itsy bitsy little clear sparkles. And I'm just going to put them on the bottom of the lower level of the centerpiece there. So just something for a little bit of a sparkle. So you can see that the flowers are raised because there's actually a shadow. So I like that card. I was happy. I'm happy with that one too. So then I got to thinking, you know, I have all these flowers that I cut and stamped, and I mean, I still have a whole bunch of them. So I've made 2 scrapbook pages and a messed up card and this card. So I was just kind of playing around in my office with these flowers and just kind of arranging them on a piece. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could do kind of a floating frame that doesn't really have the cutout on the inside of it. I thought if I just line up the flowers around the center, then I'd have an opening that is the inside edge of the flowers, and you could put the stamp the sentiment there. Couple of little leaves. So you could still have a little bit of space for a sentiment. And so I decided that I would go ahead and try to do that and see how it works out. I mean, like I said, I've got so many of these flowers, I need to do something with them. So I just thought, well, let me just see what we got here. Okay, see, I'm getting better about making smaller pieces. Now, the thing about overlapping your items doing these floating frames is that the pieces don't always adhere as well as they need to for maneuvering them around and picking them up. And so I could tell it's a little heavy, and there isn't stickum on all the areas where you need the stickum. So I'm having to be very careful about how I'm doing this. And, okay, Ginger. So I think there's a reason why you leave space in between your flowers or whatever cluster or whatever leaves or whatever is your, what you are making your frame from. So you want to leave some space so you've got a place where the flower is getting held down. See, it's not really getting held down on the corners, and so it's kind of moving around. So there's a reason to having the, see, and I'm not getting a great cut either. So there's a reason to having space in between your, I don't know, items of interest, your pretties. Because these are really kind of overlapping a lot. But we'll see how it goes. I'm just kind of doing it for the idea of not doing a die cut out of the center. So just kind of pulling the card away, and it didn't stick very much. So it was only sticking by a little bit in the center and that little piece off to the right-hand upper corner. So see, there wasn't a lot that was sticking to the card. That's why it was a little bit hard to cut. So, but now I've got a lot of space to run tape down from one flower to another, rather than having to put small pieces. I can just run really big pieces. So, and the space is, so obviously you just have a little center part there. So you have to be careful. You have to pick out a sentiment that's, very short and kind of small to be able to stamp in the center part. But it was just a way of using up some of the flowers and just kind of thinking, okay, well, let's see, what can I do with this? Can I do just kind of sort of like a self-center where it's just the edges of the flowers and leaves that make its own opening. So there's all the stickum. No small pieces, just, there we go. Took a little bit of color off with that. Not bad. So, and of course these are so easy to pull off in the big strips. Much less tedious than pulling the small pieces up. So this is just another idea. I think I'll have to come up with some other things to make floating frames. I really like the idea of it. But mostly I had so many flowers, I really needed to figure out something to do with them. So now this one goes right to the edge of the card. So since I had that, now I can take the card and flip it over and trim off that excess where I couldn't get a nice sharp cut on the flowers because they were flopping around a little bit. So now I can get a good sharp cut. And if I had a frame cut for this, a rectangle frame, then I could have put it around the edge of that too. I don't know how that would look. I thought I had one cut over with my extra things that I keep around just in case, but I didn't have one with just the frame. Happy birthday's too big. You're the greatest is kind of too big. Hey, you. Oh, hello. Just a note. That kind of fits just nice. Just a note. So I'll put that on the inside. That's a lot of flowers. It's a mob of flowers. No social distance there. That's for sure. Okay, and I'm seasoning the stamp because this is not a stamp I've used before. I'm trying to get a good imprint from it. And it's not wanting to cooperate very well. May have to put some more ink on my stamp pad. But there we go, just a note. So that came out okay. And now I'll just try to find some things to put on the inside and get in. Did you hear my dog? It's past time to eat. Can you tell? So that was the idea. I was thinking if there's a frame, but that's a window frame. So, and it doesn't go all the way out to the edge either. But that's okay. So you can see that it's kind of sticking up. And that is a lot of flowers. But colorful. So I'm going to go ahead and put, I don't know what I'll put on the inside. Let's see. I'm still using the wisteria. And, you know, this is, this is a stamp set I have. I'd love to tell you what it is. It's got some great sentiments on it, but I've lost the outside corner, so I have no idea, or the outside the envelope to hold it. I have no idea what it's called. And I think it might be retired. I don't know. The world needs more of you. That's nice. World could use some. And because I have a blob there, somehow I just got ink. See, it's a good place for an ink blob. And I'm just making some little ink blobs. That was on the stamp set. So wherever you kind of get a little smear of ink is a good place for an embellishment, is my idea. And I do get ink hither and yon. So there we go. It's a little splattering of, it's kind of fun. Because the front of the card wasn't busy enough. So you needed to add some ink blobs to it. And I will put something on the back because I can't have any blank space. You know, I am not a minimalist. If there's a blank space, I feel like there's a need to fill it, even if it's with a little something. I need to work on that. I think my life needs to be more simple than having something in every blank space. But that won't happen with my cards. So I'm going to use some of my gold gem sparkles to add on the lower level of my card, on the bottom level of the non-frame level. And I'll put some of these little gold gems on the center of the big flowers because the white sticks out too much. So there we go. So we just have a little bit of sparkle to it. And then I'll add, this is the first card I did, and so I'm going to add some little itty-bitty sparkles. I don't like the gold with it necessarily, so I like the clear sparkles. So if you like the videos, the green looks good too. If you like these videos, then if you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe to my channel. And I'll be doing more. It took me a while I went for about a week without doing a video, but it's because I was working on so many of the flowers, and I really did try to get, to do the floating frame and ended up with a mess, and so I kind of had to do a lot of sleeping on it. But I got there finally. Sorry that it's been a week or so since I've made a video. So there's my 3 cards. This is my first one with its envelope. And there's the second one that's using the other part of the first one. And there's my third card. Oh, I didn't make an envelope for it. Uh-oh, what to do, what to do. It was nice that the wisteria worked out for all 3 cards. So I have a lot of purple running through here. So the wisteria worked out really well. And so I'm going to put You Rock on the outside because everybody needs to have a little thing that lets them know that you think a lot of them. You know? Kids don't get enough of it. Other adults don't get enough of it. People need to know they're appreciated. So in the comments below, I'll have all of the links to the areas of the website that have cardstock and the value pack cards. It's 50 cards and envelopes for like 15 bucks. What a deal. And all of the inks and all of our kits and all of our stamps and all of our tools. And it'll be in the comments below. I hope you like my cards. I had fun making them. And although I had to say I used a few words making these cards, I learned a lot. And then it got easier for me. So you can teach an old dog new tricks. There we go, folks. Thanks for watching. Bye now. Ta-da!